morning to you. Nice to see you. Let's kick off talking about that junior doctor strike. 4 days walkout in April, they've announced. They're demanding a 35% pay rise. Is that a reasonable demand?
Well, I think the argument for pay restoration is reasonable. They're making a reasonable argument that their pay hasn't kept up in line with inflation for more than a decade. But I've been honest with the BMA that if I were the Health Secretary today, we just wouldn't be able to do a 35% pay rise overnight. And what I've asked them to do is judge Labour on our record. When we were last in government, we did deliver pay rises, fair pay rises for NHS staff. In fact, we delivered full pay restoration. And the reason we were able to do that is because the economy was growing and we were able to invest in our public services and fair pay for staff without having to hike up taxes in the way that the Conservatives have had. And that's why Labour's so committed to getting the economy growing, because if you get the economy growing, everything else becomes so much more easier. Investing in our public services, bringing bills down, making sure that people's wages more than meet living costs so that people can actually enjoy life and have some financial security.
So what do you make of the way that the BMA are going about this, pitching for a 35% pay rise? That's 7 times more than nurses and ambulance workers have agreed to. Do you think they're going about this the wrong way?
Well, I think it's a sign of desperation, actually. And I've been really struck when I've been talking to junior doctors on the front line. Bearing in mind these are people towards the earlier stage of their career in the NHS. They're really demoralised. They're really burnt out. They are feeling the pinch in their pockets, particularly if they're working in big cities with living costs as rising as they are. And so I think what we're seeing with the junior doctors' strike, as we've seen with the nurses and the ambulance workers, is a cry for help. And I think the best thing the government can do is treat them with respect. I think some of the rhetoric that the government have used, including in recent days since talks have broken down, I think just needs to be de-escalated now. Get them back around the table. I think it's encouraging. The BMA have said that they're willing to compromise. Let's see that compromise in practice now and avert this strike action, because coming hot off the back of Easter weekend, which is always traditionally a pinch point for NHS pressures, I think is a genuine risk to patient safety, and that's why I don't want these strikes to go ahead.
So you think that the patient safety is at risk, partly because it's 4 days straight off the back of the bank holiday weekend?
Yeah, and I've had emails to that effect from consultants in the NHS in the last day or so, really concerned about these pressures. And I'm glad you're covering this morning, because I was really struck when the junior doctors last went on strike for 3 days. Maybe it's a bit of public fatigue. Maybe it's lots of other things going on in the news. But junior doctor strikes are arguably more disruptive to NHS services than the nurses' strikes and the paramedic strikes. And there were no derogations in place to maintain a level of cover during the junior doctor strike. So I'm really worried about the impact on NHS services. And I really feel actually for NHS leaders, NHS managers who are trying to maintain services and patient safety against this really challenging backdrop. Because unlike most negotiations where, the hospital chief executive would be the employer, the government's the employer in this case. The government's doing the negotiating, and poor hospital leaders are the ones that are left trying to pick up the pieces, keeping services going for patients, and I really feel for them too at the moment.
But you acknowledge that Labour would not be able to offer 35%?
No, we'd be around the table negotiating, and I asked junior doctors, trust us on our record on this, and we were in this position pre-97 where people tried to pin us down on specific dates, specific commitments. We said then, as the economic circumstances allow, we don't want to make promises we can't keep. Labour's approach is to under-promise and over-deliver. I think given the lack of trust in politics and politicians at the moment, that's the right approach. So judge us on our record. We do understand the case that junior doctors are making, but they're going to have to bear with us should there be a Labour government after the next election. As we get the economy growing, we'll be able to invest in public services without hiking up people's taxes in the way the Conservatives have.
OK, I also want to ask you about Ofsted, because they put out a statement this morning saying that they're not going to be pausing school inspections, this in the aftermath of the suicide of a head teacher. Are they right to continue with their school inspections?
Well, of course, the first thing I want to say is it's just an absolutely heartbreaking case, and my heart goes out to the family and to all the staff who'll be affected by absolutely tragic news. I do think school inspections are important. They're important for reassuring parents around school standards. They should be an important tool for school improvement. Clearly, there are challenges with the way that inspections are conducted, and we've seen, I think, an outpouring of anger from the teaching profession. Labour's committed to reform the way that inspections work, to take a more balanced report card approach. No doubt we'll be consulting with the profession in the coming weeks and months.
But I do think,
I think inspections are an important part of.
They should carry on.
I think they should carry on. I do. I do think that Ofsted has got to reflect, perhaps on the tone and the level of pressure that comes with inspections. I should say I've been through an Ofsted inspection myself as a school governor. I have never felt a level of pressure in that way, in terms of accountability, as we did. I certainly, as a governor, didn't want to let the school down, primary school in my borough in this case. I think that it's the pressure, I think, that teachers feel, which has become unhealthy. And in this case, I mean, we don't want to predetermine no doubt, the inquest that will take place. But clearly we can see from the facts already available that the pressure of the inspection has been a factor here, and that should give us all pause for thought, even if not pause in inspections.
OK, well, Wes Streeting, we really appreciate your time. Thanks so much
very
for
much
coming and chatting to us today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do stay with us. We've got lots coming up for you.